Current Affairs. This is Akashvani. In the weekly program Current Affairs, now we bring you a discussion on 12 years of PM Jan Dhan-Yojana, India's leap towards inclusive finance. The participants are Sharad, Kohli and Dilip Chenoy, economic analysts, and the moderator is Teena, the journalist.
Good evening, listeners. Welcome to our program Current Affairs. I'm Teena. 12 years ago, on 28th August 2014, India began a journey with a simple but powerful idea that every Indian should have a place in the formal banking system. It shouldn't matter where you lived, how much you earned, or whether you had ever walked into a bank before. That mission was called the Pradhan Jan Dhan-Yojana. 12 years on, the numbers tell us just how far that journey has travelled. Today, more than 59 crore accounts have been opened with deposits of over 3 lakh crore rupees. And look at who these accounts have reached. Nearly 78% are in rural and semi-urban areas, while around 56% belong to women. But behind every number is a person. Someone who perhaps opened a bank account for the very first time. A woman who now has an account in her own name. A family that can receive a government benefit directly without depending on a middleman. Because Jan Dhan was never just about opening bank accounts. It was about opening doors to savings, insurance, pensions, digital payments, government benefits, and increasingly formal credit. In many ways, it has become the first step for millions of Indians into a larger financial system. So after 12 years, the real story is not just about how many bank accounts were opened. It is about what those accounts have changed in people's lives. Has banking become more accessible? Has it changed the way families save, spend and borrow? And importantly, what should be the next big step, particularly when it comes to access to credit? To discuss the 12-year journey of PM Jan Dhan-Yojana and its transformative impact, we have with us two distinguished guests, economic analysts Sharad Kohli and Dilip Chenoy. Welcome to this discussion. Let me begin the program with your thoughts, Mr. Kohli. So explain to our listeners what has really changed in these 12 years, because before this and for many, many years, having a bank account was still a challenge for a large section of our people. Today, as we speak, the number stands at 59 crore plus accounts. What, according to you, or how significant according to you, has this change been for the Indian economy?
I think this has been absolutely transformative, if you ask me, because take a story of a person from a remote village. You know, he had a bank on the outskirts of the village and he used to always pass through the bank. And when asked that, do you have an account? So he used to say, no, this is not for us. Ye hamare liye nahi hai. Ye is Amir logon ke liye. You know, that was the kind of statement people who had never stepped in a bank. I think this is not just about the scale. 59 crores is a huge number. We are talking of 590 million as far as the numbers are concerned. Probably this could easily surpass population of several countries combined together as far as financial inclusion is concerned. I think it has given a new identity to people of the country. And I remember when this scheme was launched, I was incidentally on a lot of media platforms, Teena, at that time as well. And there were critics who were saying that this is going to have no impact. You're giving bank accounts to people who don't want to keep money, who don't want to go to the bank. What will they do with the bank? They don't have money, Garibi, and all that narrative was being built at that time. And I think we've come a very long way in these 12 years. Look at the situation. Now, the average balance which is carried in these banks, Teena, at this point of time is close to 5,000 rupees. In the last 10 years, this balance has trebled 3 times. And from keeping money in your small little mandir at home, from keeping money in your cans of wheat or rice, from keeping money into almiras, into locked in your clothes and so on. So the money has gone into the bank. And the best takeaway for me, Teena, if you ask me, has been JAM, the Jan Dhan-Aadhaar-Mobile, the JAM trinity as we call it. I think this Jan Dhan has been the first stepping stone in the JAM. And I think this JAM has been very, very transformating, from DBTs to people getting more financially literate. That's a huge takeaway from me. I come from the world of finance and economics. Financial literacy in this country has always been a question. One of the major reasons of poverty has been the lack of financial literacy with people. They don't know about bank, they don't know about insurance, they don't know about savings out of all the things. So I think this has brought a new financial identity to the country. And if you ask me honestly, if 25 crore people today have come out of multi-dimensional poverty, I would say this JAM led by Jan Dhan account has been one of the prime reasons why people have managed to come income. Of course, there are lifestyle, there are education, nutrition, housing, lifestyle changes, but I personally feel that Niti Aayog should also include a person having a bank account, which wasn't there before, as one of the criteria of people coming out of poverty. I mean, it's your own money going to the bank, but look at the change it has brought to people's life. So that's my recommendation now,
That's
that for
right.
Niti Aayog to go to the next level should include financial inclusion also in the multidimensional poverty index and so on and so forth.
Certainly. So in the 13th year, how will the Jan Dhan Yojana and its success be taken forward is something that we will deliberate upon in due course of the program. But taking on from what Mr. Kohli said, Mr. Chenoy, especially about the role that the JAM Trinity has played. Certainly, this combination has changed the way government support reaches citizens. Today, it may sound ordinary to our listeners, but 12 years or perhaps a few years, in fact, even after it was launched, for a person, especially in a remote village, receiving money directly into a bank account without a middleman has been a very different experience. But how do you think this helped build greater trust also in the formal financial system? As Mr. Kohli explained, for years that trust was lacking, but this initiative and the journey it has traveled in 12 years does indicate that the government has been able to build the trust in the financial system.
I think it's important to understand that before Jan Dhan, financial exclusion was not simply about poverty. Millions of people lacked a formal bank account. They didn't have access to formal savings. They didn't have a mechanism for receiving government payments. They had no access to formal credit, and they had no insurance and pension products. So what Jan Dhan formally did, it actually made basic bank account a public infrastructure layer. And I think the most important innovation for this was, the zero minimum balance free kind of an account, accessible through bank branches and bank mitras. That means banking came to your doorstep. You did not have to go to bank branches. And as it was linked to the Aadhaar and mobile and eligible for direct benefit transfer. It also enabled you to be connected to insurance, pension and credit products. So I think, like you said, it was really huge use for the women which were there. Now, if you look at the JAM Trinity, the Jan Dhan-Aadhaar-Mobile and the DBT Trinity, I think we forget the first real particularly important and life-saving impact of this was felt during COVID-19, when the governments needed to transfer assistance rapidly. And therefore, it was a very important aspect of reaching out to the millions and crores of people and enable them to actually overcome the COVID. Now, the Jan Dhan created the welfare state from one based predominantly on physical delivery into one capable of delivering benefits digitally and directly. It actually created the foundation for the digital economy. When you connect Jan Dhan to UPI and we say, okay, Jan Dhan 2014 was Jan Dhan-Aadhaar-Mobile plus DBT, 2016 was UPI, and we were able to make digital payments at population scale. So I think Jan Dhan created the account infrastructure, Aadhaar created the identity, mobile created the connectivity, and UPI subsequently created an extraordinarily easy payment layer. What the most interesting transformation was that it moved from account ownership to financial inclusion. So there's access, there's usage, there's financial services and economic empowerment. We've done access well, we have done usage reasonably well, but financial services, as a person save, borrow more, insure and invest in economic empowerment, I think we have to focus on stage 2 and 4 as we go forward.
Okay, that's an important question. And I think, Mr. Kohli, in the initial years after the Jan Dhan Yojana was launched, I think the government was faced with the question that the account is useful only if it is actually used. In 12 years or maybe less, because for 2-3 years I think this question was around. Where do you think, or how much progress do you think we've made on that aspect, on the active usage of accounts?
Well, if you take the balance which lies in these accounts collectively, Teena, it's over 3 lakh crores. As I said, from average balance of probably 1,500 rupees in the year 2015, we are now almost close to 5,000 rupees as the average balance. And the biggest change, I remember, I traveled to Bihar a few years ago, and I happened to visit a village where I visited a family, and the women in the family told that out of her savings of lifetime, she had collected about 15,000-20,000 rupees. This was generation before. And one fine day, there was a male in the house who took away all the money collected, and he just spent it. And the poor woman who probably spent her lifetime to collect the money, or probably a number of years to collect, was gone. And now today, the same generation, she told me that now my daughter-in-law keeps that money in a Jan Dhan account. So there is no risk of somebody taking it away. And this has also been the women aspect, which you pointed out, Teena, has been a very, very important. I think this has empowered women. It cushions you against inflation, even if it's lying in a savings account. Although I must tell you that a lot of these bank balances are now being converted to fixed deposits. deposits, where you get a return of about 6 to 7%. Imagine this used to be lying as cash. And if you keep cash for some time, you are unable to beat inflation. And effectively, your cash loses value every year. Here, there was a case where the value was being added. And I think the real test of Jan Dhan came, Teena, during the COVID, when government wanted to launch these DBT schemes and millions of households were listed out for the direct benefit transfers. And when people were not moving out, people were not touching cash at that time. I remember people were hesitant to touch cash because of the COVID infection and so on and so forth. That's when the real stress test for the Jan Dhan came. And I think the moment I knew that Jan Dhan has come out of COVID test, I had an inkling that this is going to be one of the largest financial inclusions this country has any seen across the world. Forget about India. Nowhere in the world, this kind of financial inclusion has been seen. And possessing a card, Teena, having a plastic card in your pocket was considered as a status symbol. Look at what RuPay card has done. It has brought that card to every pocket of Jan Dhan account holder. You have now a debit card and your RuPay card is spreading like anything. I think that RuPay card has been a revolution as far as holding a card and making payments through a card are concerned, or having a debit card for that matter is concerned. So I think insurance comes with that card. You get a 2 lakh insurance. So you had an insurance product which was inbuilt into the whole thing. I think this has been, for me, this has been a landmark achievement. And Prime Minister had a vision. He knew at that time, as I said, the critics were very active at that time. They said, I remember I did a number of debates where people from opposition and other parties, they said, oh, you're opening the bank account. Where is the money to keep? As I said earlier. But he had a vision. He knew that if we set up the accounts, we are setting up a platform for them to be included financially and also to inculcate the habit of saving. And I must tell you very convincingly, Teena, that I know hundreds and thousands of families who have now developed this habit of saving ever since Jan Dhan account was set up. And their savings were very haphazard. Their savings were not there at all. Look at the financial security it brings to the whole family, not just the account holder for that matter. Teena.
That's right. I think a lot of transformative impact it has had over the years. You spoke about Prime Minister's vision. And when it comes to beating skepticism on Digital India, I think that perhaps has been our biggest success because we don't even consider it as technology. In 12 years, we've begun to take it for granted because of the effortless change that it has brought about in our lives. Taking on from the point that you made earlier on the women's inclusion in the financial system, Mr. Chenoy, traditionally women were invisible from the financial system. Today, nearly 56% of Jan Dhan account holders are women. So, of course, while having bank account in the woman's own name has made her financially independent, do you think when it comes to elevating a woman's position in decision-making on financial matters within the household, do you see any visible change? Has the Jan Dhan account or related aspects of financial inclusion helped the woman in the decision-making capability?
I think, Teena, it's a very important point you made. But I think it's important to understand, if I look back at the statistic, roughly in 2011, there were only 26.5% women with accounts. In 2024, which is kind of a World Bank estimate, they said that 89.2% of women actually have accounts in India. So the female account ownership more than doubled between 2014 and 2024. And therefore, I think the success of Jan Dhan was because it treated financial inclusion as an infrastructure, not as a subsidy, right? The success was not the 59 crore bank accounts that we talk about. It was actually creating the financial rails on which DBT, insurance, pension, digital payments, and eventually the broader digital economy would operate. Now, if you look at this, a lot of the states has schemes specifically for women. And now with 89.2% of the women actually having accounts and those who are not there also being encouraged to open accounts, the money that is being paid as support to the women is directly going into their accounts. So nobody else has got access to that money and the woman decides how to spend it and to do whatever it is. And if you look at that, 7 out of 10 of these accounts actually have a RuPay debit card annexed to it. So it's really whole first decade of this whole Jan Dhan scheme has given India financial inclusion for a lot of it. And if you look at it, a lot of the schemes for women, the loans for entrepreneurship, the PM Vishwakarma scheme, which also includes women entrepreneurs, the money that is given that is also going to their bank accounts and going directly to them. So the whole system has become much more efficient. So I think if you're looking at it going forward, I think the Jan Dhan succeeded because it treated financial inclusion as infrastructure. I'm coming back to that point again and not as a subsidy. It also created the rails on which DPT, insurance, pensions, with the Atal Bima Yojana, digital payments, and eventually the broader digital economy can operate. And of course, like I said earlier, the next 10 years must move from banking the unbanked to actually empowering the bank, especially converting accounts into savings, into insurance, into responsible credit, and entrepreneurship and wealth creation systems.
That's right. I think when you say the next step is perhaps not just getting more and more people into the banking system, because that's one area wherein we've been performing well and the momentum will take us to more and more number of people, but getting them deeper into it now. So you mentioned savings, insurance, the pensions, not to forget credit. But if I may ask you, which of these areas in the next few years, according to you, should be needing the greatest push? And if you could relate it to the manner in which the economy is growing, which of these requires that kind of thrust from the government in the short term?
The question is not how many accounts. The question is how many accounts are actively used every month. So the metric should change to active usage. Currently, it is in the percentage is not that high. The second thing, the metric should be how much economic activity flows through them. So it is, like you said in the opening statement, and like Sharad also mentioned, the current average Jan Dhan Yojana balance is relatively modest. The real test going forward is that if we can use the account relationship responsibility to provide small business credit, to provide working capital for women, to provide agricultural credit, to look at them enlarging into housing finance, and then, of course, credit to women entrepreneurs. So the business aspect of the Jan Dhan Yojana is, I think, where the government should focus, and the objective should be funding the unfunded, not banking the unbanked.
That's right. On the credit question, Mr. Kohli, if I may also get in your perspective, when we say the next phase of financial inclusion should be about moving from bank account for everyone to now meaningful financial opportunity for everyone, and there are different aspects on which progress can be made. But what is the next challenge when we talk about meaningful financial services which will be available in these areas, and especially when we are talking about it in context of 78% of these people who are at present in the rural and semi-urban areas?
Well, I would like to point on two things here, Teena, as a suggestion. One, of course, would be credit growth. But what happens in such a scenario is that you start looking at a bank as an ATM, as a credit ATM, as a loan ATM. So with the number of NPAs which the country has witnessed in the past, so obviously there is a need for a very prudent and pragmatic credit management. So ideally, an ideal situation should be, because the trust on the bank is now there. We spoke of 56% women being there. We spoke of far and wide villages where people have connected to the bank. What I would envisage here, Teena, is that I would want the bank to become a center of financial literacy. That when the villager or this person who's the last man in the queue, when he comes to the bank for operating his account, for getting his passbook updated, or if he's got a problem with the RuPay card not working, maybe it has got wet or damaged, he does visit the bank. So he should be there. The experience at the bank should be more educative. If financial literacy is communicated to the people, I think I would consider this as the next level. Of course, credit distribution has been there for a long time. And what kind of credit would be distributed, as Dilip said, it could be working capital, it could be small business, it could be self-help, women groups, and so and so. That, of course, there are a number of schemes right now, Teena. I mean, there are a number of schemes. If I read out the credit schemes ongoing in this country, probably I'll burn away the rest of the show time. But I think being a center of financial literacy, for me, would be a huge step, because if these bankers can, one corner of the branch, I know some of the branches are very small, they are not very large. Either these bank mitras, the count of these bank mitras as per the dashboard, which I am aware is about 1,25,000 or maybe 1,26,000. I think these bank mitras can become the ambassadors of financial literacy. If they can either reach out to the families, or they could invite the bank for, let's say, once in a week lecture on what happens, or a kind of a counseling session on how do you do financial planning. You have two people who earn in your house, so collect their income, plan out your expenses, so you don't have to probably look at loans. If there is a calamity, let's say your crops get destroyed, how to recover insurance, what is insurance, how much is covered. I think all the aspects of financial literacy should be brought into this whole system. And if that happens, I feel financial inclusion will be more complete. It'll be more comprehensive, and it'll obviously be much more useful than where we are today, Teena.
Certainly. And I think, Mr. Chenoy, because you understand the system, but you also understand where the gaps exist. What happens is each time we have such significant policies, there are some gaps either at the awareness level, and that's where financial literacy comes into play. How can we also make use of technology? When we look back at our transformative journey, technology no doubt has played a very, very significant role, and even in changing banking dramatically in the last 12 years, technology and various tools have played a significant role. When we talk about the next phase of Jan Dhan, how can we efficiently use digital tools and data to say give the account holders a more personalized access to information, to perhaps any information that they want about savings, insurance, credit that you and Mr. Kohli both spoke about?
I think, it's the first thing. Now, it depends on how many people have smartphones, how many people have feature phones, etc. So using a combination of a chat bot and SMS in different languages, or even voice to text now, you can actually do that very simply. We have to now use this mobile connectivity and the Jan Dhan accounts to spread not only financial literacy, but also digital literacy. So it has to be a combination of digital literacy and financial literacy going forward. Again, using technology. Today, most of the loan approval processes, etc., are manual. But if I were to take the Jan Dhan program and use technology and use it on a phone, we can actually look at small pre-approved revolving credit lines based on regularity of deposits, based on DBT inflows, based on the UPI transactions, based on repayment, based on savings history, which are all digital now. So you could start with an automatic loan on, let's say, 5,000. If your behavior is good, go to 10,000, then go to 25,000, then go to 50,000. This could be a revolving line. This is going to really use technology to enable these women to actually get credit. And, you could also expand it to an emergency loan for medical expenses, school fees, and things like that. I think the use of technology here, and we did it in a very interesting way when we were in NSDC, but you can encourage micro savings. That means for every 500 rupees or X 100 rupees that comes into the account, automatically X% goes into savings. And similarly, you can look at a simple pension, kind of a Jan Dhan pension product, again using technology, where maybe 100 rupees or 200 rupees per month is automatically invested for retirement. Because although we are among the youngest population in the world today, we also have the largest number of old people. So I think the using of technology to turn these transactions into credit, into useful products, and into improving digital and financial literacy are the key aspects going forward.
Mr. Kohli, so when we are talking about moving from financial inclusion to financial empowerment, how can we use technology now not just to move money, but to understand people's financial needs much better and help them through the use of various technological tools, help them save much more, borrow, insure themselves more wisely at the right time? I think it's the right information at the right time to this population that the Jan Dhan account is catering to is going to be more crucial in the next few years.
See, Teena, the journey to prosperity doesn't end at savings. You may be able to save. I think that, so the next level would be, for example, let's say a Jan Dhan account has now collected 25,000 rupees. I'm being very, very hypothetical. Obviously, 5,000 when I said is the average balance. There could be people with 1,000 balance. There could be people with 10,000 or 15,000 or 20,000 balance. Some of the accounts, I'm told, carry a very, very healthy balance. So the journey should not end at savings. Look at what these private banks are doing these days. They are getting into multiple financial services. They are recommending mutual funds. They are recommending other financial products. So I think there should be an effort on part of the bank or the bank mitra. First of all, ideally want bank mitra numbers to also grow, because we're looking at 59 crore accounts, and with 1,25,000 mitras probably may not be enough, because all of these account holders, sometimes they hesitate visiting the branch too often. So that's where the reach of the bank in the form of bank mitras is very, very significant. So I would want that educating the account holder on various investment options. I won't say that you ask them to jump into stock market or something, but they could take a baby step to a mutual fund, to an RBI bond, to a post office scheme. So I think small steps need to be taken there, because if you need wealth creation out of this 3,16,000 which is lying as a balance, well, some of this balance may be lying idle because the savings account interest rate today is barely 3 to 4%. So it effectively doesn't make any money for you. So I think the next step would be educating these people. Insurance, credit, we've already spoken on that. For me, investments matter. So educating these account holders on investment, I think the bankers are in the best position before they get misled by somebody, before somebody comes and fleeces money out of them, before they watch something on the social media by a influencer and get carried away, put your money, it'll be double in 15 days, 20 days, all that thing which goes on, which SEBI has put restrictions on. So I think bank would be the right source of information for investments where I think the road to prosperity for these account holders would open. So for me, opening that bank as a financial services center would be the next step probably, which can be taken. And that to me would be in the right direction.
Okay, Mr. Chenoy, if I may come to you on the last mile challenge that we still face, because although digital banking, we spoke about how we've used technology effectively to remove a lot of physical barriers, but there is still a human element to financial inclusion and to all of the aspects related to financial empowerment that we've spoken about. And I think the right way to proceed will be to combine both India's digital infrastructure as well as the institutions which are working in the area of financial inclusion. And I think the most important aspect that both of you touched upon is financial literacy, so that technology doesn't just reach people, it changes their financial behavior. So 2 quick suggestions as we wrap up the conversation.
I think now roughly about 5.1% of people in India, and especially in rural and in difficult districts where they require, actually don't yet have a mobile phone. And they don't have access to even the Jan Dhan-Yojanas or the Jam Trinity, etc. So I think the first thing that we need to look at is to see how we can get the people who are digitally excluded, how can we get them in digitally included so that they can be part of this. And then there may be people who have a mobile phone but yet not on the Jan Dhan platform or not yet on the UPI platform. So how do we include them? So now we need to move towards a saturation of this going forward. The other thing is, and I like Sharad's point about this, but if we create a simple dashboard which shows the financial health of a person. What are your emergency savings? Do you have insurance? Do you have a pension? What's the credit utilization? What's your monthly cash flow? What is the eligible credit? And we start talking to people and educating people like this and showing them the power of how they can use it. I think that's a very important next step to make them included, because they might have an account, but they may be ignorant of what that account could do for them.
Certainly. I think last 12 years were about putting a bank account into the hands of every Indian. The next chapter, as both of you have rightly pointed out, should be to put, say, greater financial security, more economic opportunity, as Mr. Kohli also put across the point, which is within the reach of these people. One last question, Mr. Kohli, to you. If you look at Jan Dhan today, not as a platform, but as an enabler, as a tool for empowerment because of its reach and penetration in the rural areas, because of the financial independence that it has given to the women of this country, I think that number, when we talk about nearly 60 crore, 59 to be precise, but we will be reaching 60 crore very soon. How do we, or what more should we do to build on top of those 59 crore accounts over the next decade, which will be the next chapter of Jan Dhan?
I think, Teena, the initiative will continue with equal diligence as it has been continuing for the last 12 years. I think Prime Minister's vision is very clear that 100% people, anybody who's a major, must have a bank account. Even minors can have an account, by the way. You can always have it in your guardian's name. So the entire population, why should a single person, for that matter, be excluded out of financial world, financial inclusion? So I think the aim would first be, I appreciate what Dilip said, that because we are heading for saturation, but I feel there is still some way to go. So I think the first target of the government would be to probably complete this exercise. And when will this be completed? When every single person in this country has a bank account. I mean, I'm excluding, of course, the little children, although you can always have a child's account, as I said, as a minor account, and you can have a guardian in place as the controller of the account. So first target would be have everyone. And then, of course, once everybody has a bank account, I think it'll open a world of opportunities, which we already, DBT is there, a RuPay card is there. I think once everybody has, I'm sure this will go to the next level. And the focus then would not be inclusion. The focus then would be on financial literacy. Focus then would be on wealth creation and educating people, of course, as we've already spoken on the technology, but wealth creation, to my mind, and getting more and more people out of poverty, getting more and more people more financially educated so that they know about their financial planning. They know where to go from here. And I love the dashboard idea with Dilip said. You could have a dashboard where these banking mitras could go and educate those people that, look, you open this dashboard and this will tell you about what is happening in your financial world.
Certainly,
so the next step would be bringing prosperity is, to my mind, the top priority.
Absolutely. I think both of you have said the same thing, and I couldn't agree more that the next chapter has to go beyond access. It has to move towards greater financial security, the empowerment aspect that both of you spoke about, and then economic opportunity. And as we enter the 13th year, I'm sure we're going to move from every Indian having a bank account to every Indian perhaps being able to build a better future. I think that's what Jan Dhan will lead us to. Time allows us to take up only that much on this edition of Current Affairs. Thank you once again, Mr. Chenoy, Mr. Kohli, for joining us and sharing your thoughts.
You were listening to a discussion on 12 years of PM Jan Dhan Yojana, India's leap towards inclusive finance. The participants were Sharad Kohli and Dilip Chenoy, economic analysts. The moderator was Teena, the journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR.
Current Affairs.